Have you ever seen a Supreme Court justice publicly call a sitting Congresswoman brilliant? That's exactly what happened when Justice Stephen Breyer and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett crossed paths, and the exchange went viral for all the right reasons. It began at a legal symposium, where law students and professors gathered expecting a routine academic discussion. Instead, they witnessed something extraordinary. Justice Breyer had been handed one of Crockett's legal briefs. As he scanned the pages, the room grew silent. "Congresswoman," he said, pausing on a section, "the way you've structured this equal protection argument, it could actually strengthen the constitutional foundation for federal voting rights." The audience froze. Then came the moment nobody expected. Breyer looked up and smiled, not the polite smile of a public official, but a genuine one. "I'd be honored to read this," he said. "And honestly, I suspect I'll learn something from it." The crowd erupted. Phones shot up. Cameras rolled. It wasn't just politics anymore. This was a masterclass in law, unfolding live. But Crockett wasn't done. She turned to the audience and proposed something bold. What if this wasn't a one-time exchange? What if every law school in America hosted dialogues like this? Not between allies, but between people who disagree, who bring evidence, preparation, and respect to the table. We could call it the Honest Dialogue Project. The idea caught fire. Instantly. Students nodded, professors whispered, and within hours, hashtags like #HonestDialogue were trending across social media. What made this moment different from typical political viral clips was that people weren't just sharing sound bites. They were sharing full arguments, long segments of detailed, respectful debate. Law students organized watch parties. Professors made it required viewing. One student wrote, "We spent 3 hours debating constitutional law after watching Crockett versus Breyer. That's 3 more hours than we've ever done voluntarily." The ripple effect spread beyond classrooms. The American Bar Association adopted elements of Crockett's proposal. Civil rights attorneys said the exchange reignited their passion for advocacy. And even conservative legal scholars praised the moment, calling it exactly how productive disagreement should work. Meanwhile, Congress itself began to shift. Crockett's colleagues, Democrats and Republicans alike, started treating her differently. In hearings, her sharp, well-prepared questions cut through political theater and exposed weaknesses others had missed. During one judicial confirmation, she pressed a nominee on his selective use of originalism, forcing him to confront contradictions in his own legal reasoning. The room went dead silent. Even seasoned senators took notice. Within weeks, her reputation transformed. No longer just a freshman lawmaker, but a respected legal mind shaping national conversations. And Justice Breyer? Those close to him say the exchange reinvigorated his final months on the court. His opinions began reflecting a deeper engagement with real-world implications, a lasting influence from one powerful dialogue. But perhaps the most important legacy wasn't the ovations or viral clips. It was the reminder that in a time of polarization, substance still matters. That preparation, respect, and intellectual honesty can spark change, not just in law schools or courts, but in American democracy itself. One retired justice later summed it up. "Congresswoman Crockett and Justice Breyer showed us that passion and respect, preparation and humility aren't opposites. They're the foundation of leadership." In a single exchange, Jasmine Crockett proved that brilliance and courage could still break through the noise. And Breyer showed us that true wisdom lies in recognizing it. The air in the symposium had shifted. Justice Breyer's words hung in the silence like a spark that refused to go out. A Supreme Court justice had just admitted, not politely, not symbolically, but sincerely, that a Congresswoman's work could shape the future of constitutional law. It wasn't just the words themselves, it was the tone, the weight, the authenticity. People in that room knew they weren't watching a performance. They were witnessing a genuine moment of intellectual recognition. Cameras clicked. Phones recorded. Every law student in the room scrambled to take notes. Professors exchanged glances that seemed to say, "Did that really just happen?" And Jasmine Crockett? She didn't shrink from the spotlight. She leaned into it. Justice Breyer, she said, steady and composed. You've mentioned that the legal profession needs more of this kind of rigorous exchange. What if this wasn't the end of a conversation but the beginning of something bigger? The audience leaned forward. Something bigger? What could she mean? What if, Crockett continued, turning to face the crowd, we challenged every law school in America to host similar dialogues, not just between justices and Congress members, but between judges and civil rights attorneys, between professors and community advocates, between anyone willing to wrestle with these questions honestly. The room came alive. Students whispered excitedly, professors nodded. Even Breyer tilted his head, intrigued. Crockett raised her voice, her words measured but powerful. We could call it the Honest Dialogue Project, a commitment to engage with the hard questions of law and justice, not for clout, not for political theater, but for truth, for accountability, for the real impact on people's lives. For a moment, the room was silent again. Then a law professor from the third row stood up. Congresswoman, she asked, how would this differ from the academic conferences we already hold? Crockett didn't hesitate. The difference, she said firmly, is accountability and real-world impact. Too often, conferences become echo chambers, where like-minded people reinforce each other's views. What I'm proposing is structured dialogue between people who disagree. Not shouting matches, not empty talking points, but evidence-based, respectful argumentation that forces us all to sharpen our thinking. Students began nodding. Some clapped, softly. A law student called out from the back, "But how do you stop people from using these dialogues as platforms to grandstand?" It was a sharp question, the kind that could trip up a less prepared speaker. But Crockett smiled. She welcomed. "And that's exactly the right question," she replied. "And the answer is structure and accountability. Participants would submit arguments in advance, they'd be required to cite evidence, and most importantly, they'd commit to engaging with the strongest version of opposing arguments, not straw men, not caricatures." She gestured toward Breyer. "Notice what just happened here. I didn't simply say voting rights are important. I brought specific cases. I pointed to concrete consequences. I came prepared. And Justice Breyer didn't dismiss me, he engaged. That's the model." Breyer nodded, his voice calm but approving. "The Congresswoman is right. In judicial conferences, we're required to confront the strongest counterarguments, not the weakest. That structure elevates the discussion. And what she's suggesting, well, it could very well advance legal thinking in this country." The audience erupted. Applause, cheers, even a standing ovation from a few students who couldn't contain themselves. But what came next was what made the exchange unforgettable. Breyer turned to the audience and said, "I want everyone here to understand what just happened. Congresswoman Crockett didn't just make an argument. She presented a vision of how we can challenge each other, push each other, and raise the standard of discourse in this country. And that is the kind of leadership we desperately need." It was the kind of praise no young lawmaker could script, no PR team could spin. It was authentic, and it was about to spread far beyond that room. To understand why this moment mattered, you need to know who Jasmine Crockett is, and why her rise is so remarkable. Born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, Crockett didn't come from privilege or legacy. Her journey to Congress wasn't paved by family wealth or political connections. It was built on grit, discipline, and an unshakable belief in justice. As a young student, she was outspoken, sharp, and unafraid to challenge authority. That drive led her to study law, where she quickly developed a reputation for meticulous preparation. While some classmates skimmed through casebooks, Crockett dove deep, always looking for the principle beneath the precedent. Her early career was defined by civil rights work. She represented clients who couldn't afford high-powered attorneys. She fought for people whose voices were often drowned out in the legal system. Colleagues said she approached every case as if it could rewrite the rules of fairness itself. But Crockett wasn't just a fighter, she was a builder. She understood that law wasn't just about winning cases, it was about shaping systems, rewriting structures, and demanding accountability from those in power. Her transition into politics was almost inevitable. When she ran for office, Critics called her too young and too idealistic. But voters saw something else. A woman unafraid to speak truth, unafraid to be prepared, and unafraid to challenge entrenched power. And when she arrived in Congress, she carried that same mindset. She didn't blend into the background as many freshmen do. She asked tough questions. She showed up with thick folders full of notes. And while political theater dominated headlines, Crockett insisted on substance. That's what made her exchange with Justice Breyer so powerful. She wasn't performing. She wasn't grandstanding. She was doing what she had always done, coming prepared, armed with evidence, and ready to engage. That's what made her exchange with Justice Breyer so powerful. She wasn't performing. She wasn't grandstanding. She was doing what she had always done, coming prepared, armed with evidence, and ready to engage. For Breyer, a justice known for valuing intellectual rigor, that preparation stood out immediately. He recognized in Crockett what generations of law students and lawyers had struggled to embody, the perfect balance of passion and precision. And that's why his recognition wasn't just flattering, it was transformative. It wasn't about one Congresswoman impressing one justice. It was about the validation of a new model for leadership, one where substance beats spectacle and preparation beats posturing. The exchange between Crockett and Breyer wasn't just a viral clip. It was the culmination of years of discipline, long nights of study, and a lifetime of choosing principle over performance. And for millions of Americans watching, it was proof that brilliance doesn't have to shout to be heard. It just has to be undeniable.